Hi class, this is Ms. Morgado, and in this lecture video, I will be discussing the mechanics of projectile motion, also known as two-dimensional motion, and provide a sample problem at the end. So make sure you have your notebooks, calculators, and pen so that you can write down notes while listening to this video. Some day-to-day examples of projectile motion would be a basketball player throwing a ball in the air, a soccer player kicking a ball off the ground, or perhaps as simple as you playing catch with your pet. So, in those examples, you probably notice that objects thrown in the air follow a curved path. This curved path is known as the trajectory, and the object that is thrown in the air happens to be the projectile. So if you throw a ball in the air, that object or the ball is known as the projectile. Now, when you throw an object in the air, the object doesn't just move along the vertical, it also moves along the vertical. And you would suggest that the trajectory is curved because there is gravity pulling the object down, which is true and correct. However, if there is gravity pulling the object down, what makes the object be translated along the horizontal as well? If gravity is the only force acting on the projectile or your object, why doesn't it fall vertically upon release? Why is it moving along the horizontal as well, or the x-axis? So from this, those types of question would make you think that maybe the object is also moving or has a motion along the horizontal and not just the vertical where gravity is acting. And that is why this is the reason why projectile motion is considered as a two-dimensional motion. This type of motion tells us that the object is moving in two axes. We have the x and the y axis. And in projectile motion, the type of motions happening in one axis is entirely different from the motion happening on the y axis. So what are those motions? So projectile motion is actually the combination of horizontal and vertical motion. And these motions are independent to each other. Along the horizontal, what happens is uniform motion with zero acceleration. Along the vertical, what's happening is free fall with a constant acceleration due to gravity. And when these two are combined, what is created is the curved path or the projectile motion. Please remember that these two motions, uniform and free-falling motions, are independent of each other, and thus evaluating projectile motion can be done in two ways. And it is only by separating horizontal and vertical motions. So say you have a ball, and this ball is launched or thrown in air, and it travels a curved path. If you will observe closely, or maybe video record its motion and put it to slow-mo, you'll probably notice that as the object goes up, the velocity of the object seems to decrease, or the object slows down. But upon reaching the highest point of the trajectory, known as the apex, the object begins to speed up. This is because as the object goes up, its velocity is directed upward, that is going against the acceleration due to gravity. And we've learned before that when the two vectors, velocity and acceleration, oppose each other, the resulting motion is decreasing velocity or slowing down. But upon reaching the highest point, the object will then come back down and its velocity is directed downward with the acceleration also downward, the resulting motion is increasing velocity or speeding up motion. Now the object goes down because in all points of the trajectory, along the trajectory, there is always a downward gravitational pull, or there is a constant acceleration due to gravity, which is the value of negative 9.8 meters per second squared. And this is the reason why all objects fall back down when we throw them in the air, at least here on the surface of the Earth. On the screen, you will see the x and y motions or velocity of the object of a projectile as it goes up. You can see from the green arrows, which represent the velocity, vertical velocity of the object as it goes up, that the arrows are getting shorter and shorter. And then totally, you won't see any green arrow at the highest point or at the apex. This tells us or indicates that the object is slowing down as it goes up. But on the other half, second half of the motion or the trajectory, you'll see the green arrows pointing down again, down this time, and the arrows seem to get longer and longer. This tells us that the object is speeding up as it comes down. Now, again, remember that acceleration due to gravity plays a role on this. It is the one pulling the object as it goes up, slowing it down, and it's also the one pulling the object as it goes down, making it speed up. On the other hand, if you look at the red arrows to the right, they are all of the same length, and this indicates the uniform motion happening along the horizontal, wherein the object doesn't accelerate. There is no acceleration or force that pulls the object to the right that could speed it up or slow it down. So because these two motions along the vertical and horizontal are present, they combine and they create this projectile or curved path that we see. You can see the blue arrows in the figure that as the object goes up, the blue arrows get shorter and shorter, which again indicates a slowing down or a decrease in its velocity. But as the object goes down, the object's velocity increases as represented by the blue arrows that are getting longer and longer. I would like to highlight as well that at the apex, you won't see a green arrow because at the apex, the vertical velocity or the velocity along the y is 0 meters per second, or there is no velocity along the y at the highest point. What's there only is a velocity along the x, which is constant, the same as any other horizontal velocities throughout the trajectory. And also remember, gravity is always present in each point in the trajectory. So the table here or below is a summary of the motion of a projectile along the horizontal and vertical. Like any other vectors, projectiles or velocity vectors in projectiles also have x and y components. And since x and y components are involved, we will be using the trigonometric function sine, cosine, and tangent again to solve for the x and y components of the velocity. Also, class, here's another thing to remember. The horizontal distance traveled by the projectile is known as the range. So technically, when we talk about projectile motion, we will be considering two distances. One happening along the horizontal, one that is along the horizontal. This distance is known as the range. And another displacement along the vertical, and this is the height. So in projectile motion, two displacements are considered, one for the x and one for the y. If we launch a projectile at an angle from 0 to 90 degrees or 89 degrees, angles will create various uh, displacements in the horizontal or various range. Apparently, when you release a projectile at 45 degrees, just as what is shown in the GIF, the projectile will have its max or attain its maximum range. But if we release the projectile at angles below or higher than 45 degrees, the range will be always lower than the range produced by the 45 degrees. And also, a significant relationship is found when projectiles are launched at complementary angles such as 60 degrees and 30 degrees, 15 degrees, and 75 degrees, etc. The range produced by these pairs of angles or complementary angles will be equal. Since there are two types of motions happening in projectile motions, we will have two sets of equations, one for the horizontal and one for the vertical. And these equations are for acceleration, velocity, and displacement along the horizontal and along the vertical. I would like to highlight that acceleration along the horizontal is 0 because remember that the motion in the horizontal is uniform. Thus, there is no acceleration. Nothing will cause the object to speed up or slow down along the horizontal. On the other hand, in the vertical, we have a uniform acceleration, which is acceleration due to gravity. Finally, you'll notice that our subscripts in the horizontal and verticals are y and x. You'll notice that our velocity initial variable now has an x beside it because this velocity is the velocity or x component of the initial velocity. Thus, it has a v sub ix or vix. And in the y, we have a viy. Plus, if you take note of the equations, these are actually the component method that we usually do to solve for the values. On the other hand, you'll note the some kinematic equations here for displacement, kinematic equation 1 even for velocity, and the basic equation of velocity for uniform motion. I would like you to take a screenshot of this slide so that you can use it as reference. And we will be taking some of these equations as we solve the problem later on. I hope you're ready with your calculators and notebooks. Let us solve this problem. A kick football leaves the ground at an angle 27 degrees with a velocity of 18 meters per second. Calculate the maximum height, the time of flight before the football hits the ground, and how far away it hits the ground. Assume the ball leaves the foot at ground level and ignore air resistance and rotation of the ball. So we have an established assumption here that the object is moving without air resistance, and thus we can assume that the trajectory is symmetrical. And this will make our computations easier. So from the problem, let's say we have this ball, and this ball is, as stated, launched at an initial velocity. So let's establish the model first. And the question says that the velocity initial is 18 meters per second and that it is launched at an angle 27 degrees. So this arrow I'm drawing represents the velocity initial of the ball when it was kicked by the player. And so we will write a label here. Vi is equal to 18 meters per second. Now, this velocity vector creates an angle relative to the horizontal or to the x-axis, and this angle is 27 degrees. So this is our theta value. All right, now if you notice, since the vector is angled, then this vector has an x component and a y component. And what we learned before, when solving for x and y components, we use trigonometric functions. So in this case, the velocity initial x, or the x component of the initial velocity, is equal to vi cosine theta. This is because this side or component is located on the adjacent side of the vector, main vector vi, thus we're going to use cosine. As for the y-axis, we will use, or the y component, v initial y is equal to vi sine theta. This is because if you just replicate this vector here, it will be located on the opposite side of the angle. And using SOHCAHTOA, you'll notice that sine theta uses opposite side over adjacent. Thus, we're going to use sine. So if we will substitute the values in these two components, we'll write down 18 meters per second cosine 27 degrees. For the y-axis, y component, we'll write 18 meters per second sine 27 degrees. You can pause the video to solve for the x and y components. And the answer is, for the x component, we got 16.04 meters per second. And for the y component, we have 8.70 meters per second. Kindly check your work if you got the same values. All right. Now, we have the x and y component. These two components are integral because if we want to know the values of the maximum height, the time of flight, and the range, in this problem, we need the initial values or the components of the initial value. So let me continue the trajectory. When we launch this at 18 meters per second, it will follow this path. Let us establish that, again, at the apex or at the highest point, the velocity y is 0 meters per second. Okay, but however, there is always a downward gravitational force, which is a negative 9.8 meters per second squared, and there is always a horizontal component at the highest point, Vx. All right. Establishing those, let us try to answer letter A. What is the maximum height? So to do that, please review the equations presented earlier. In those equations, you might have noticed the fourth kinematic equation, which is y is equal to vfy squared minus viy squared all over 2g. Now, this is the equation that we will use instead of the other equations because we have a value of g. We know the value of viy. We just got it here. And also, at the highest point, we know that the velocity is 0. So we can use the velocity final as 0 for now and only get the or use that value because in letter A, what's asked anyways is the vertical displacement, which is the distance of the apex from the ground. So it is beneficial for us to use this equation. So using that equation, we can substitute the values. Since Vfy is 0, or at the highest point, there is no velocity, so we can remove that out of the equation, thus turning the equation as negative viy squared all over 2g. By substitution, the values would be negative 8.17 meters per second squared divided by 2 times negative 9.8 meters per second squared. Kindly note that the squared here in the numerator is applied only to 18.5 to 8.17 and not the negative outside. Since there is a negative outside of the numerator and we have a denominator that is also negative, our final answer here would be 0. You can pause the video if you want to solve on your own. So the answer for the maximum height is 3.41 meters. Okay, type everything in your calculator and you will get 3.41. Kindly check your work. Okay, how about letter B? What is asked in letter B? It's asking for the time of flight before the football hits the ground. So it would be beneficial for us to evaluate the time going up first and then find the time going down later on. Why? Because we note the following values. The final velocity y, okay, in the half of the projectile is, or the trajectory is 0 meters per second, or at the apex, there is no velocity along the y. But we have an initial velocity along the y. Okay, what else? Dividing the trajectory in half is much easier than getting the total time of the trajectory. So if you look at the equations I've presented earlier, you just look for an equation that has a t variable and is much simpler and will provide or utilize values given in the problem. So from the set of equations earlier, you'll probably notice the equation for the kinematic equation 1, which is velocity final y is equal to velocity initial y plus gt. Now, this equation will provide us the answer because we know VIY, we know the G, and we know the value of VFY at the apex, which is again 0. So if we substitute or simplify the equation, we can cancel this out. Since that is 0, this is 0, VIY is maintained, plus GT. Now, to isolate T, we transpose VIY on the other side, turning it negative, and then dividing it by G to get the equation for time. We do the math here. T is equal to the negative of VIY earlier was 8.17 meters per second divided by negative 9.8 meters per second. Since the numerator is negative and the denominator is also negative, our final answer is positive. If you calculate this, the answer will be 0.83 seconds, approximately 0.83 seconds. However, this time we've calculated is just the time going up, because the values we utilize for this are the values from the initial position of the object to the apex and not just until it hits the ground. So in order to get the total time, we have to assume that this trajectory is symmetrical. When we say symmetrical, one side of the trajectory is the exact mirror of the other side. So if that is the case, if there are no external factors affecting its motion, we could say that the time we've calculated is the time going up, and that's also the time equal to the time going down. Therefore, to get the actual total time, we just simply multiply the time going up, which is 2 times 0.83 seconds. And the answer would be 1.67 seconds. This is the total time of the object as it goes up and down. All right, that's for letter B. Now, how about letter C? Letter C is asking for the range. It's asking for the range of this projectile, the distance from the point it was launched up to the point it lands. So we're looking for range, or in this case, it is the delta x. If you look at the equations we had earlier, we have this equation delta x is equal to Vix times delta t. But apparently, Vix was already calculated earlier, or the x component of the initial velocity, and we got 16.4 meters per second. So all we have to do is to substitute that value in here. So the range is 16.04 for meters per second times the time. The time variable here that we'll use is the total time. Okay, because that is the time going up and down. And the range is the distance from the area it was launched up to where it lands. So it's more appropriate to use that value and not the 0.83. So let's write 1.67 seconds. And if you do the math, the answer will be 26.79. Please take note that this is rounded off, a value that is rounded off. And your answer might be off if you use values, if you use in the equation values that are also rounded off. But that is all right, because this value, the discrepancies are just by decimal points, and in a macroscopic motion, those decimal points aren't observable or almost negligible. So if you got a value that's 26.63 or lower than 0.79, that is okay. So what is the horizontal distance then? The range of this projectile. So it is 26.79 meters. And that is how you solve an example, a projectile motion example, wherein the object is launched at an angle. Okay, I hope you were able to copy or write some good notes for this lesson. If you have any questions, feel free to message me in our MS Teams. Alright, that is all for this video. Thank you so much for your time. Goodbye.